People used me for self-enrichment. People became what they became. I never used them for anything. I can tell you now, when they were accused of killing Godrich's daughter, I stood up for them. If I had a problem with them, I would have been a political opportunist and said, you are now accused of a serious allegation. You need to step aside or step down while we're investigating. I said they will never do that. I didn't have to talk to them. That's how much I believed in these comrades. Had something like that be said about me, were they going to say, not him? Had something about me raping a person said about me, something about rape about me being said, will they say the same thing about me? That not him. But I said, without asking them twice whether you were there or not, I said, it's not true. I don't know the facts, but it will never happen. They will never have done that. At every opportunity in their private conversations and in their own cocoons, they took that opportunity to discredit me and speak very bad of me. And they thought I didn't know about it. I know them for who they are. But because I chose you, I choose to live with them for the sake of the unity of our movement. We will not be betrayed today only. We'll be betrayed into the future. But ours doesn't belong to us only. We inherited it from those who died. This is not our struggle. This is a struggle of our forefathers. This is a struggle of those who came before us, died without having achieved the objective of this struggle. So you have no right at all not to believe in this cause because people died for this cause, because of the behavior of some few individuals. This is a reason more enough for you to remain determined and know why Chrisani was killed. You must know every vote you lose, you stand a chance of losing so many opportunists who are coming to you and closer to you because they thought you are about to become something. It doesn't only happen in politics. It happens even in families. You must be alive to that reality. I thank all of you for your messages and your Bible verses. I even thought someone died or something because it was read chapter what and chapter this and.
It's part of truth as we speak. The Commander-in-Chief out in Soweto addressing his ground forces, clearly an approach different from Thursday, which was a lot of reconciliatory, as the media calls it, the bromance approach to that, with somebody using a platform of his former party to announce his future. Prof, what do you make of that? I mean, surely a lot of people, were saying this is a matured way of handling it. We've never seen this happen, etc. And the gear has changed a few days later.
Well, for me, it felt surrealistic. It felt like this is something not real. This is what we saw there, because they shared the platform of two sides who are going apart. And as if it is saying to him, go well, have a good future. We are not going to be angry with each other. This is not normally when someone very prominent, and in the case of now, this is the number 2 in the EFF, said, well, I'm going to leave the EFF, and he didn't spell out exactly his reasons, but I mean, there's so much speculation about that he's unhappy with the EFF, he wants to see sort of an opportunity for himself. And I think that the one aspect which is we don't talk so much about at the moment is that I think what we are seeing in both the EFF and MK is actually a result of the elections and the impact of the elections. And specifically in the case of the EFF, the fact that they've, the first time ever since 2013 or 2014, that they've actually lost votes. And it's very much specifically in the case of KwaZulu-Natal, and that is the province where Floyd Shivambu was in charge of the campaign of the EFF. So it must have, there must be repercussions as a result of that within the EFF. I mean, anyone who knows...
What kind of repercussions are you talking about?
Well, I can't not see the position of saying, but that the leadership of the EFF will say, but you know, Deputy President, you've neglected us. You know, this is where we've lost the most of our votes, 7.5% compared to 2019. And the combination of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng losses amounts to the real losses of 1.5%, the total losses of Gauteng, because in some other provinces they actually gained some votes, like in the Northern Cape and the Eastern Cape. So I think this is about now, the EFF has reached the point, I would say, where they have to reconsider their position as a political party, because they were number 3, now they are number 4.
Yeah. How should they reconsider themselves?
Well, that's the question. And what we saw tonight, I think, in a sense, is what Julius Malema is doing in terms of a pushback to say.
So you're agreeing that today he's seizing the initiative from what Thursday looked like a morning session?
Well, I guess that was the intention. You know, that to say, well, up to around about Thursday, he looked indecisive. He looked defeated to some extent. And the people around him and the EFF and others are saying the fact that there's a conference coming up in December, we must present ourselves, and in 2 years the local government also, we must, very much in relation to MK, because MK to a large extent have received the most public attention, especially during the election, not the EFF. So how are they going to win back that lost ground? How are they going to present themselves as a party who has evolved over time, away from what it was in the past 10 years, into something which can really contest elections on a new platform against the MK on the one hand and against the parties, the ANC and the DA and others. So I think this is what we saw tonight. I mean, it's the first time ever I can remember that he was not speaking. He was reading his speech. It is a prepared speech, which is very well prepared in terms of that he wants to set out, I would think, almost the type of a new manifesto of the EFF today.
Yeah. So what do you think, I mean, of the whole, if you like, recharacterization of the progressive forces? Obviously, if you are in parliament and you are a progressive alliance, you can't then get out of there and then say the opposite when you are in other platforms. But during the break, we had a snippet there of him saying, well, the student command can do what it pleases outside. Nobody cares. We will only be friends with these guys in parliament. What does that mean now in terms of the relationship between MK and ANC? And that's also that immediately, on the other side, debunk the myth that maybe these guys, this is a strategy, they're sending this one in there to cause problems with the MK and collapse it, or prepare for a future two-nothering.
Yeah, I certainly think this wasn't some premeditated conspiracy for the EFF to go into MK, as it were, through Shivambu. Because you just wouldn't do it like that. You wouldn't have this unexpected announcement, which clearly had a personal impact on a leader like Julius Malema, as Makudu has already suggested. However, having said that, we're dealing with the short-term fallout right now. And as I say, the EFF is trying to find itself. We haven't heard much from MK, but I'm sure MK is trying to figure out how they position themselves. The long-term question, though, is how do these two parties now consider their collective future? Because as Dr. Coetzee has said, the EFF and MK find themselves together, isolated from the GNU. And ideologically speaking, although there's some divergence, there's also some convergence. And now there's even some intermingling between the personnel. So there are forces pushing the EFF and MK together.
To work together.
Even though now there's some antagonism because of what Shivambu has done. So I think the real question, not just for the EFF but for South African politics, is will those forces, in the long term, surmount the interpersonal differences? Or will we see this feud supersede the potential convergence, in which case we'll get a further fragmentation of the opposition? And I'm not sure whether that serves the EFF or MK in the long term.
In fact, Makuda, I wanted to latch on to that. I mean, is it a good thing if MK and EFF don't work together, given that they are the only ones left, in a sense, to be opposition to what is now 10 parties who are now one government?
I would argue they shouldn't, because, you know, political parties, often than not, are motivated by, you know, what they are likely to get from the other at a particular point, and that determines the kind of relationship they enter into to serve a particular purpose at, you know, either after the elections or just before the elections. So if we take a few steps back, we'll remember that shortly before these past elections, the DA and quite a number of parties formed a moonshot what, and they said they're going to work together, and, you know, people are rejecting the ANC, they'll leave the ANC out, we must unseat the ANC. The people who create challenges in society
cannot be the ones
who are going to solve those problems or those challenges. But when the election results came, the same parties were the first to run to the ANC to say, on the basis of what we know now, you know, let's enter into this working arrangement. This is what is good for the country, because an arrangement with the others is doomsday, whatever, etc., etc. You know, and so I think we can theoretically enter into some debate about, well, you know, if the EFF adopted this bromance or this friendly relations with the MK, you know, they can form a tech team and hold the GNU accountable, etc., etc.
You don't think so?
But in the end, even between the two of them, there's the unstated competition, because the competition is there. All of them are going to want to position themselves as the party that is holding the others accountable. And I suppose if they both do it well, it benefits the rest of us, you know. But whatever arrangements between the MK party and the EFF between now and the next elections, you know, are or must be considered, you know, some loose agreement of sorts, because, you know, to take a few steps back again, those
are still going to compete.
And those who entered into whatever arrangements, you know, after the elections, you know, they decided
get out of the window.
This thing that we said to other people, no, you must give us confirmation now that you will not
work with the
But ANC. They went against their own ways. So even these ones, I think, they'll say to us, you know, there's no revolutionary caucus now. You know, the student command is the student command, we must go and do whatever. But if it serves the EFF and MK at any particular point in the future for them to bring their numbers together, whether we're talking local government elections and the results thereof in 2 years, or whether we're talking the next elections, they will decide whether to work together on the basis of their numbers. Because whether or not they work with the ANC, that is also not off the table, because what the EFF leader has just said tonight is that he was prepared. He never was the one who said, no, we shouldn't. You know, the fundamental principle is that the EFF would be willing to work with the ANC. The EFF would be willing to work with the other people except the two parties that he mentioned. So it's all loose arrangements until the numbers at a convenient time dictate
it looks like
whatever
the
nature
GNU
of
has
the relations.
claimed another victim.
Sorry, what?
It looks like the GNU has claimed another victim in this arrangement. If you listen to what the speculations are and what Malema is responding tonight. Prof, after the break, I want you to weigh in on that. that is there, if in your view, a speck of truth in the fact that the fallout may as well have been over the GNU, because a number of people within the EFF thought that we've been here for 11 years. This is now our time to demonstrate that we can govern at the national level. And others said, no, not with the DA there, and so on. So it seems like it's not too unbelievable that the GNU may well be the point of disagreement, but it could also be speculation that could just have been thrown in there, because my understanding is that Floyd was still here to hear from Floyd about why did he leave, because he refused to answer questions in that regard at the press conference, because he said this is not the right platform. Maybe when the MK calls a press conference, he will tell us. But after the break, we hear from you, Prof. Lead us on that one. Did the GNU claim yet another victim or not? It's very important to have a, some semblance of an opposition. And of course, when something happens there that seems to ruffle the feathers, the whole country comes to a little bit of a standstill, and people are trying to speculate what may this mean and so on. So that's our conversation here tonight. Prof, do you believe the speculations that these guys may have deadlocked over the GNU, or is it purely because the conference is coming up at the end of the year and it doesn't look like Julius Malema has any intentions of not standing and continuing for another 5 years?
Yes, I think the Government of National Unity has become a very attractive forum for all the parties. And we see it, how the different parties that are now part of it, how they use it, actually exploit it almost for their own purposes. The DA did it, the Patriotic Alliance and Freedom Front and others. So they see it as a forum where they can now project themselves much more than when they were opposition parties. On the other hand, the MK and the EFF, I think they realize that. They are a bit in the cold at the moment as opposition parties.
Yeah.
At the same time...
You mean they would have preferred to be inside?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, the fact of what Julius Malema said tonight, it's a confirmation of that he wanted to be there. At the same time, we must also take into account that the EFF has been part of coalitions. Even here in Gauteng now at the metro level, and they are now losing that. So in that sense, it looks as if they are in a process of retreat, or if they are losing those opportunities. And I think the narrative, the political narrative amongst political parties, especially during times of elections, is look at what we have done as members of government. That's our track record of what we can do, what we can achieve. And the EFF is again now losing out on that, because it took them very long to get into the metros. Now here in the ANC have to a large extent pushed them out. Action SA and others have come in. And then at the same time, I don't think the public forgets that the EFF and the DA has worked together in some of these metros before, since 2016. So to present each other on both sides, of whether the ANC or the DA can work together with the ANC, or the EFF work together with the DA, people will say, but you've done it before. So you can't present these absolute principles of we are not allowed to work together. And I think that is where the credibility of the political parties are suffering. And where what we have seen with the Government of National Unity is maybe on the other side almost too much of pragmatism, that parties have set aside, for example, the UDM was part of the left. If you
yes, they were actually part of the progressive caucus, or whatever they called it. Yeah.
Yes, but they are now part of the Government of National Unity. So I think once the results of the election became known, it was open season for negotiation. But the fact that I think that the EFF was saying, or putting up right at the last moment, or relatively late in the negotiations, to say it's either us or Ramaphosa, that in a sense excluded them from the process. And I think now they realize, but that was to their own detriment that they've done it, because they are, I would say, largely in the political wilderness. It's in a very cold position that they are politically.
And is your impression that that was due to a deadlock and the EFF so-called unreasonable demands, or it was a strategy, as Helen Zille is telling us, we don't know who to believe now, that the ANC needed to do something that would not show them just going directly for the DA, but rather, cosmetically bring in this. I mean, there are 10 parties. I mean, some of them, PAC has 1 seat, for God's sake. and they've got a ministry. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with the latter interpretation, that it couldn't be an ANC-DA coalition. That
Yeah.
would have been, for both sides, supporters,
disaster.
just unacceptable. They were fed with this narrative of saying we can't work together. So having now this much bigger forum, in a sense, it dilutes this sort of polarization that developed out of the narrative and the speech that was presented from both sides. But that is, I think, where the EFF and now to a large extent MK, although in the case of MK, I think it was because the disciplinary hearing of President Zuma was still in the pipeline, it was almost impossible to say that they can come.
They can sit together. Yeah.
Yes.
What of the MK? I mean, a big gain for them. I mean, a lot of people speculating that, in a sense, to put it politely, the AFF has lost capacity. They use cruder terms, the brain has left and what have you. But what about the MK? I mean, do you think this is a scoop for them? And would you speculate that they came hunting for Floyd, or Floyd went looking for them?
Well, we published an interesting piece in the ST in the Sunday Times this past weekend, where essentially the explanation is that the deputy president of the EFF went looking, went hunting for people to reinforce the Red Berets in KZN.
Yeah.
And, found one leader here and some, but the thing turned on its head, with the hunter becoming the hunted. And so as soon as, former President Zuma announced that he's available on that December 16 to lead the MK party, Floyd then became the hunted, so... And that has now ended with Floyd leaving his own party to join the MK party. But for me, there's no doubt that it's a plus for the MK party. The MK has struggled publicly to position itself as an organized party. When I say organized, I don't mean their ability to go and, get voters here. I mean, to run things in a way that appears, orderly. They've had the Secretary General who was fired and then reinstated, then fired with immediate effect, and then they've had people going to Parliament, and others are told to, to step down. They don't step down. They threaten illegal action. There's like a lot of chaos within the organization. So you need a stabilizing force. And the thinking is that Floyd will bring that to the party. The party, as we went to the May 29 elections, the issue was, what policies does, where is a manifesto that articulates the issues for the party, and so Floyd is supposed to come in and plug those holes and provide some kind of thinking around policy, hopefully not just his own thinking, but talking to the people within and the leadership and the members to stitch together something that will be coherent, that articulates what the party stands for and how it distinguishes itself from the other parties, and hopefully in Parliament. That's another terrain of struggle for MK party, where it has battled to articulate its position and has battled to essentially just take that opportunity there, given the void that's left by the DA becoming part of the GNU, that we are the official opposition. And so the Judge President Hlophe, a great guy, a great mind, there's issues that he has with the law that led to him being there, right? But the question is he able to channel his great mind to become this very strong voice of opposition within Parliament?
Yeah.
Is he that? And the answer has been, you know, he may be great at writing academic documents and being
Yeah.
a great judge when he's not pursuing politics within the courts. But insofar as being a leader of the opposition in Parliament, he's struggling with that. And so the thinking is Floyd will not just help with the policies and the other things. He'll get in Parliament and he'll be somebody who's familiar with the workings of Parliament, where he has served for many years. And he'll then become that voice for the MK party in Parliament,
Sure.
articulating the
So
issue.
before we go to a break, do you then not buy the theory, right, that he actually is going there with no position being promised to him, which is what the MK spokesperson has been telling the nation, that no, it's not discussion, he's coming as a member and we will use his talents wherever the party deploys. Do you buy that story, or there must have been a proper discussion about you are leaving position as deputy president, you are coming here to do something X, Y, and Z?
To some extent, I buy it, and to some extent, I don't. Obviously,
Okay.
Obviously, Floyd Shivambu is not going to be an ordinary member, branch member in MK. For the reasons that have already been articulated,
Yeah.
he is able to add significant value to MK, probably at a leadership level. But I'm not convinced that he's going in to become president of MK either.
Yeah.
The question for me is actually a tale of two conferences, because there will be the EFF conference.
Yeah.
But presumably, the MK itself, once it has consolidated itself, will go to a conference. So what the positions are now, really are, quite frankly, pieces of paper. What really matters is that after the MK is consolidated democratically and has its first conference, who is then elected? And so there, I think that Floyd Shivambu himself will be thinking, if I can implant myself within the MK and prove my worth, then when democratic elections in the organization do arrive, then I'm in a good position.
So in simple terms, would you say that he then moved for personal pursuit of ambition, knowing that the conference is coming, and obviously Malema, is not yet president, so he'll stand again until another opportunity comes where he can actually stand for national office? Would that, in a sense, be part of the mix? That
well, look,
he was going to be either relegated to remain deputy for another 5 years, or not even make it to deputy?
Look, the number of different theories out there is as voluminous as political parties in South Africa at this point. And quite frankly, I think the only people, or maybe the only person who really knows why this decision has been taken is Floyd Shivambu.
Floyd.
But what I will tell you is what I think is most plausible. I don't think it's VBS. I don't think it's the Trojan horse theory.
Yeah.
I think it is that politicians want power, they want positions, and they want influence.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, Julius Malema holds the predominant influence in the EFF. So does Floyd Shivambu want to be deputy president of the EFF for the next 20 years? Maybe, but maybe not. He has just built something with Malema from the ground up.
Yes.
And he looks at MK and he thinks, oh, he has an opportunity to do the same thing, but maybe with an even bigger reach now. I look at what I can do in the EFF and I look at where I am with this new opportunity, and maybe that's the more exciting and interesting one. That's what I think, but who knows?
Yeah.
What is clear is that with MK in its nascent form, there's an opportunity now for someone to come in organizationally and drive things forward.
All right. When we come back, we round off the conversation to now look at the political landscape, right? About what you guys think this will mean for the broader political landscape. Do you think it's just a blip where the AFF is having a little drama on the side or a meltdown after the elections, or is this going to, for example, put a new focus on the opposition, when in fact for the last 2 months the focus has been on the new government and what they are doing and the ministers and so on? So we'll talk a little bit about that. By the way, talking about that, the minister in the GNU of Education stopping a 10 billion rand bubbling scandal of food. I would say the food, food parcels or whatever, children's food. They are giving to one person to give food for children across the whole country. 10 billion was stopped. Where was Njimutsa when that was happening? Who knows? I asked them a question before we went to a break. What will it mean for the political landscape? Prof, let's kick us off on that. I mean, is it just like an excitement on the side? Is it like a sideshow when the new government is getting off the ground, trying to build something new, etc.? Or we can't be that dismissive?
No, I won't be so dismissive. I think the main focus will be on the Government of National Unity because of its size, the fact that it is a very new experiment in a sense for everyone. But at the same time, I think what it amounts to is a sort of reconfiguration of the opposition and the relationship between the EFF and MK. MK is the new kid on the block. It looks like they've made a lot of inroads in terms of becoming a noticeable, much more than a noticeable party. But the EFF's future is a bit uncertain. The fact that they've lost now support in especially a very important province like KwaZulu-Natal and here in Gauteng also. So I think that in a sense it's going to be about how long, in which direction are the two main parties going to go. I think the Government of National Unity will only be there for 5 years. That's normally the term for a Government of National Unity, if you want accept this term. And then thereafter, by 2029, there will be new dynamics. And it will depend on what these two parties, MK and the
What would be your advice to Malema if you were to listen to you tonight?
Yeah, that's a tall order. I would say become again a little bit more proactive. You know, they become used to being very much in the face. They have been, now it's so subdued, it's so quiet, you know, coming from the EFF. And at the same time, go beyond just the young persons. I think that's one of the biggest problems of EFF. They are doing well at universities, but because young people don't vote in big numbers, they have to diversify. They have to broaden the support base of the EFF. So start to build on something where you pull in older, well, the more generations of the 40s and 50s also.
Okay, Makud, as you answer that question about what it means for the political landscape, does it reflect on Malema that Floyd decided not to, in a sense, open up about why he's leaving? Because it doesn't look like Malema was able to get anything other than that this is painful and whatever. Because if he was told why the guy was leaving, he probably would not have even hosted the joint press conference with him. Does it reflect on him?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that Floyd has his own agency. So he has his own life to live, decisions to make. You know, you made the point earlier about whether he wants to be Malema's deputy for the next 20 years or not. You know, so he must, away from the rallies, think about that and answer it for himself. And then make the necessary call for his life. But also, I mean, the point about the EFF's performance in KwaZulu-Natal, it's not just the EFF that lost. I think
ANC lost terribly.
Everyone lost there, including the IFP. You know, so I think we are being a little hard on Floyd's performance in the province because it's essentially Floyd against a former president of the country, former president of the ANC who's based in the province. You know, the odds were stacked against all of them. But in the end, you know, what are the implications for our country's politics? I agree that the focus is largely going to be on the GNU. And I think that, you know, some ministers in the GNU, have positioned themselves well. The Minister of Home Affairs, you know, the DA's minister there, solving the visa thing in a number of whatever days. And the Public Works Minister going around, you know, looking at construction sites that are under siege. And they are actually looking at this as an opportunity to go in and solve problems. The story that you mentioned about the 10 billion for school feeding scheme that was in the Sunday Times this weekend. This is the DA. No, this is the DA essentially saying this is how we can use this thing for the benefit of ordinary people.
To lift the profile of the DA ahead of the next election, Helen Zille was quite clear about it. You got the last word.
Look, JJ, I think this is the first of many big political stories in the next years ahead. It's happened in a slightly unexpected place, but I'm not as bullish on the GNU's coherence as many people are. I think we'll see many similar stories and a reconsolidation of our politics, not only outside the GNU or the coalition government, as I call it, but inside. And I think the next 5 years are going to be stories like this of old parties that we thought would always be together, fragmenting, breaking apart, and trying to reconsolidate with new players. It's make or break for the EFF, but I don't necessarily think it's break. It could be make. The EFF has been written off many times before. I don't think this is the end for them at all. I think it's what they do at this moment that will spell whether it's the end or not.
The whole typical issue of don't waste a crisis. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your perspectives, erudite as usual. I really appreciate your time tonight. Well, I hope that helped to make sense of the political developments that were triggered by Floyd Shivambu's resignation. I'll give you some of my view tomorrow as we resume Power to Truth. But until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.
Yeah,